Hello students. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you are about to start your digital soundscape project, or you've started it already, and you're having a little bit of trouble. Maybe need some tips on how to get started. So the idea of this video is to give you kind of a head start on building a few features that you can expand upon to make your projects. And what's a bit of a low budget production. I'm recording this at home because my whole family has the stomach flu, and you don't want me around right now, but hopefully I can give you a resource that will help you out during my absence. Or if you're watching this in future semesters and it holds up, then you might be using this with me in the room as a supplemental resource. For now, I'm going to dive into Greenfoot, and we're going to take a look at a few different things that we can get up and running that are really going to help our soundscapes take shape and form. I've created just a blank project that just has a world in here. The one difference between your projects and mine right now is that, I'll zoom in here a bit, that I made my world a bit bigger to fit on my screen, so remember we can do that. I'm just going to get rid of all the comments to tidy up the screen a little bit, and so kind of a nice core of all the required stuff. Let me even get rid of this up here as well. This is all the required stuff we need to get started in setting up our initial project, and I highly recommend that you copy down the code I'm writing, pause the video, and test it out as I go, just to make sure it really makes sense to you and what you're doing. The first thing I want to show you how to do is to actually be able to create text on the screen in a more direct way than we did in our previous unit on making art. So how to show text on the screen. Oop, learned how to type, Mr. L. So the easiest way to show text in Greenfoot, if you're in a world class, anything that extends world, is we can use a method called show text, just like this. And in it, we have to send three pieces of information. A string of the text itself, so here's a text example, just one, comma, the x and the y values that we want them to be at. I'm going to put in 0, 0 for now, so we see this at the top of the screen. You'll see that it gets a bit cut off because it places the center of the text at the top, so if we want to see it, we have to kind of move it over and down a little bit. Maybe further over, it looks like here. Text example, there we go. I could also move this much further into my screen, 250, 430. You'll see it moving down. So it's a really fast, easy way of getting text onto the screen. But there's a limitation to it, which is that no font size, or no customization really, at all. It's just text on the screen, really, really simply. So that could be kind of a quick way to do something simple, but you likely want something a little bit more customizable. So this is the simple way, and here's the slightly more, how to show text with customization. Let's take a look. So to do this, we have to do two steps. The first step is that we actually create a Greenfoot image. I'm going to call this custom text, and it's going to be a new Greenfoot image. I'm not going to show you the API listings for this in this video, but you're more than welcome, and I recommend that you go to the Greenfoot API and actually look up why this constructor works. I'm just going to call this custom text. It requires some parameters. The first being the text itself, the second being the size. I'll make mine 30 for now. And then there's some options, but I think the one that is you'll most likely want to use the most is one that sets the foreground and background colors. So I can actually say like color.black for the foreground, and just so we can see it really clearly, I'm going to make the background blue. Now if I go over here, did I miss a did I typo something? See if my Greenfoot's giving me an error here. Illegal sort of expression. What did I do? What did I type? Greenfoot image, custom text, new Greenfoot image. Good time to troubleshoot this here. Oh, I have an extra closing brackets thing for some reason. I don't know how I did that, but there we go. A little bit of on-the-spot fixing, no problem. You'll see that it doesn't show up on the screen. There's nothing new other than this text example. In fact, to make this really clear, I'm going to comment out my original text example so that we can clearly see there's nothing appearing. The second step here is we actually have to add this to the screen somehow. We had a different strategy in our previous unit for how we did this, but I'll show you a more direct way. It's slightly less customizable, but it does allow us to kind of get it on the screen a bit more directly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the world to give me access to the background image, which right now is just kind of a blank white screen. It could also have another image attached to it, and I'm going to draw an image onto it. That image is going to be this custom text that I created here. So I'm saying draw this text that I've set up like this onto my background, but I have to define a location. Let's just go 200 by 200 for right now and see this pop up. There's my custom text. Let's make this a lot bigger, maybe 100 for my screen here. There it is. You see the foreground is black, and the background, just zoom out a little bit here, is blue. What if I switch these, blue and black? You'll see that it swapped the colors. I could also make this background white, and now it blends in with the background of the page. Something else that we can do though, well, actually, I'll pause here for 1 sec. This actually gets the text with a custom font and custom colors, which is a nice upgrade from this strategy above, where we just kind of had the text appear in this one style. This isn't going to allow us to change the font and some of the other components, but not really a big deal. This is probably all the customization you'll need for giving instructions and information in this project. We can also change things about the color that you might be interested in. For example, what if I wanted a custom color to be the text color? Well, I can actually create a color up here, or I can just generate a new color right in place here. So make sure you test this out first, and then come back here and then try this. I'm going to make a new color based on my RGB values, like 155, 20, and 200. That is a nice kind of purplish color, like a royal purple kind of a color. Cool. But something that you might not have known about color is that it actually has a fourth value, which is the transparency value. 255 means fully opaque or fully seen. And as I lower this number down, let's go to 200. Let's go to 100. Do you see what's happening? Let's go to 50. What's happening? Let's go to 10. You just barely see it. And at 0, it's fully transparent. So where students often want to use this the most is to kind of create some kind of see-throughness to the text, but often it works best with the background actually. Because if I want to have a black background, like so, well, what if instead I had a new color, 255, 255, 255. Wait, what's black again? 000. I think that's, oh yeah, 000. But the black is kind of standing out a bit too much. Well, if I added a lower transparency level to it, now I can still see stuff in the background. It's kind of looks great. I make it really low. It's like this little box that kind of makes the text pop, but you can see through it, or you can just make it 0, just to make it a fully transparent background with any color. So here's a nice way of getting some more customization. Remember, we can change the font size to wherever we want. We can change the location here. We can change the colors here. So a nice quick way to get text in with customization. So hopefully that helps you. Make sure you practice that and use it. And I'm going to move on to the next example. So let's take a quick look here. What should I show you next? Let's add in some interactability with the mouse. So what I need to do to get this working is that the constructor here, remember this is the constructor, it just sets up the initial state of stuff in the world. This is not where the action happens. The action happens in a different place in our code. This is where the action happens. Oops. And it's the public void act method, where the action happens. You have that act, action, act. You got it. So in here is where the action happens, and things can actually take place. So to show you kind of one step of this, I'm actually going to go back over here into my world, and I am going to create another world. I'm going to go new subclass when I right-click on world, and make a new one called world 2. I'm just going to give it a background from this list here. I don't know. Let's give it this nice starry background. I'm going to hit OK. And you notice nothing's changed. Well, that's because I'm still in the first world. If I right-click on world 2 and go new world 2, you'll see that I'm now inside of this world. It's smaller because it has the original sizes. So if I go back to my original world, you'll see that it's maintained those changes I made. And in world 2, I can now go in if I want to change it to be bigger. Let's just double the size of this as well. 1200 by 800 seems fine for now. Double the size, perfect. And I can swap back and forth by right-clicking and going new world. But how do I go from world to world when I'm running my actual piece of code or my program? That's what I want to show you next. So I'm going to go into my code for new world, and in the act method, I'm going to add a little bit of information. I'm going to say, hey, Greenfoot, if the mouse is clicked on something, I want you to do something. But we have to be able to pass in information to what the mouse is clicking. And this is where things can get a little bit tricky, but just follow these steps and I hope it will make clear enough sense. The simplest way to do this is to say this. This means whatever context I'm in. Since I'm in my world, this basically means if the mouse clicks anywhere on the world, a nice kind of generic click, then I have something that happens in response to this. So something that I could do is say, actually, let's jump right into it. I'm going to just create a world 2. Remember up here, I made world 2. I'm going to go world 2, give it a name. I'm just going to call it world 2 equals, maybe I'll call it a new world equals a new world 2. I'm going to generate this. And if you don't remember exactly what this means, don't worry. Just for now, just copy it. Remember that I'm giving it the name of this new world that I made, repeating myself front and back with a name I give it in the middle here. And the key here is what I'm going to do is actually say, hey, Greenfoot, set world to that world 2. I'm actually going to have Greenfoot change worlds. Here's where I set up the new world, and then I'm going to change worlds to the new one. And, oh, I called it new world. I changed my naming in the middle, and I forgot about that. So here we go. Let's take a look and see what happens. If I go back in here, and I click on my world, bam, I go into the new world. And there's nothing happening in here right now because, well, I haven't put any code to go back, but I could easily do so by kind of mimicking things. Let's just do this really quick here. Show you the power of copying and pasting. I'm going to copy public void act in world 2. I'm going to paste it. If the mouse clicks this, and now this time this refers to world 2 specifically, I'm actually going to want to change this to the original world, my world. And I'm going to set the world to that my world that I generate. So now if I click on this one, it takes me here, and if I click on this one, it sends me back. So I can go back and forth. Maybe not exactly what you want, but a nice example of how to transition between things. Transition with a mouse click. But we can do even better than this. Let's change how our click works in this second world here. Instead of clicking on this, I want to click on something else that's in world 2. So what I'm going to do is actually head into my world 2. And again, if I'm going too fast, pause, test things out, come back. You can always rewind. All right. I'm going to make a new actor. I'm going to call this, well, I have an example here. I'm just going to make it balloon. This nice balloon here that I'm going to be able to add into my world. 2 ways I can do this. I can actually add it manually like this and then save my world, or I can add it through code, which I'm going to do just to show you how I do so. In this world, in the constructor, I'm going to take the name of this, balloon, and go balloon, and give it a name, lowercase balloon. It's a new balloon. I'm just generating this new copy of that template. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add object to my world, this balloon. I'm going to add it somewhere, 300 by 300. Make sure I have the right bracketing. And now see that balloon's popping up right where I added it here in my code. So there it is. The balloon now is appearing in my world. When I reset, it's always there because my constructor always builds it every single time. Now what I want to do is change my mouse click from being the whole world to just being the balloon. And the way that I do that is by referencing the balloon's name. But there's going to be a problem, which is that it says undeclared variable balloon. I declared it right here, so why is it confused? Well, I created the balloon inside of the constructor. It's tucked away in here, and things outside of it, like this act method, don't know it exists. So I have to do one extra additional step here. Let me get rid of the comment just to make this a little bit easier to see on the screen here. Like so. What I need to do is actually take this name and paste it at the top of my code and put a semicolon. And then get rid of the definition here. A little bit strange at first glance. I promise you it makes sense in the long run. Not going to go into a detailed explanation right now, but we should be defining the balloon up here and then generating it here. Now you'll see that it actually understands the balloon exists down here. Now, if I go into this world and I click on the background, nothing happens. But if I click on this balloon specifically, it takes me back to the other world. I can go back and forth, but now this is the precise thing I can click on. Cool. So now I have a more precise mouse click. Instead of this going to a new world stuff, I could instead, for example, do something like this. Move 30. Oh, I need to actually make my balloon move. Let's have my balloon move 30. When I click on it, not my world itself, oops, click it, it now moves. So every time I click it, it moves. Okay, maybe you can start to see how like different things I could do, rotate, could start to be interacted with this. Oh, it's turn, sorry, in Greenfoot. Turn. When I click it turns, interesting. Huh, there's lots of things I can start to do with this interactivity stuff. But more than this, I can also attach sound effects. Last thing I'm going to show you for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and you can do this any way you want, but there is actually a sound recorder in Greenfoot. If I go in here, this little interface will pop up where I can actually put in a file name. I'm just going to go balloon sound.wave, hit record, bloop, 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 and this makes some really realistic balloon sound effects. Play it back. Bloop, 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 bloop. There's a lot of feedback in the Greenfoot recorder. I'm not sure if you heard that. I forget if I set up my audio capture to record that. Maybe I should double check that, but too late right now. But I'm going to save the sound I made. And now this is saved in my project file, so I can just reference it. I'm going to copy that name. And what I can do is actually go back into my code here. And before the balloon turns, I can just go, let's go, I'm going to make a Greenfoot sound. I'm going to call this balloon sound equals new Greenfoot sound. And I'm going to paste in the name .wave of that sound file I just recorded. Now, when I click the balloon, it's not playing. What did I do? Oh, I forgot to actually play it. My balloon sound, I need to actually play it as an object. This is one way you can get things to play. There we go. Let me check my OBS. Do I have my desktop audio on? I think so. You should be hearing the really terribly feedbacked, terrible recording as this example. But now you see how you get some sounds interacting in a bit of a different way I showed you in the previous tutorial. So there you go. We've made a couple different worlds. We've transitioned between them with a mouse click. We've been able to add text in different ways. And we've also been able to add objects and then be able to actually interact with them directly in different ways. These are all the skills that you need to make quite a lot of different concepts come to life alongside the previous tutorials you've watched as well. So hopefully you find that helpful, and feel free to message me or ask me when I'm back for any more help that you need. But I hope that's a good launching point for you to start building your Soundscape project ideas. Have fun!